Hey, welcome back. This is my second video. This video is one I was initially going to make before I decided to make my introduction video. This is going to be my coming out and realization I was gay video. So I'll just jump right in and get started. First I want to say, like I said in my introduction video, I was born in a small town and my family was fairly religious, so I kind of had that. I don't know if he had that going against me or not, but it didn't make it easier. And that, and the fact that I'm 50 years old, so at the time I was a teenager. It was late 70s, early 80s, and things were a little different back then than they are nowadays. So back then, it's like you almost never heard the word gay to begin with. And a few times you heard it, it wasn't, like anything really good. More negative than it is nowadays, so a little more difficult back then. But I didn't really realize, I was like 20, 21 when I realized I was gay. But looking back, I could see, things that should have told me, hey, but like I say, it's also part of the time is like you didn't talk about gay back then either. I remember when I was a kid, probably about 12 years old or so. I had three older brothers, and at least one of them would get dirty magazines from, some of the neighbor kids, and like Playboy and Penthouse, and I would glance at them, but I was more interested in some of the ads that they had that showed guys in there. And the best ones were the Hustler magazine, because those had guys and girls both, and I always those were probably those were my favorite. That, and then like in junior high and high school, I remember checking out the guys in the bathrooms, or back then you had to dress down during gym class, so guys were getting dressed and undressed or in showering, whatever, always checked them out. Like I say, it wasn't until I was about 21 or something like that, I think, when I really realized it. I was living out here in Eugene at the time, going to a local community college, and I had a roommate who was my high school friend, and he would go home most every weekend, it seemed like, and I would go home probably about every other weekend. So once in a while on the weekends when he wasn't there, since I was by myself, I'd go and rent videos at the video store. And there were a couple of video stores we went to, and I think both of them had, you had like a little section of porno. And I know the one that I went to I was looking in there one day, and I happened to see they had some gay porn. I was like, oh, I gotta check this out, see what this is. And I remember taking it out and watching it, taking it home and watching it, and I think I watched it 2 or 3 times during that weekend. Of course, I had to make sure I didn't want to be caught with it, so I had to make sure I took it back before my roommate got home. But I remember watching it thinking, just something about it just felt right, looked right. And that was about the time it's like, that must be a phase I'm going through. So, it's just a phase. I'll outgrow this. I haven't had sex with the girls yet, so man, still a virgin. I'll outgrow it. Well, and I did that for a while, probably for at least a year, if not longer. And then it's like, this is not a phase. I'm not outgrowing this. So I'm bi. I must be bi. And for years, several years, I tried to convince myself I was bi. And and then it came to a point where it's like, I can't deny it anymore. I'm not bi. So it's like, okay, I knew in my head I was gay, but it still took me a while to even say in my head. I had to sit there and actually think about it and form the word in my head that says gay. I'm gay, you know. And I think if I remember right, I even spelled it out first. Gay, gay. I'm gay, and you know, and I think it was like I don't remember how much later. I don't think it was that right that same day. A few days later, week later, whatever. I thought, okay, now I've admitted to myself that I'm gay. I need to go. I need to be able to say it out loud. That's like the next step for me to do. And of course, I was by myself, but I said to myself out loud, I'm gay. And even though I knew I was, and I admitted to myself I was back living in Florence in a small town, and you know, it's not the place you come out. And like I said, I was raised, you know, kind of religiously, and I, so, you know, I don't remember. I was like 30. I mean, I was like 24, something like that, 25. I was living with my brother. I lived with him for like a year. When I moved in, it was just him and I. Him and his girlfriend had split up, and not too long before I moved in, and actually he started dating someone, I think a new gal, just before I actually, they'd been kind of seeing each other shortly before I moved in, and I'd only been there a few months when my now sister-in-law and her two daughters moved in. And one of the things my sister-in-law did was try to hook me up with girls, and she did that 2 or 3 times. And you know, I kind of went along, played along with it. I didn't try and stop her or anything, you know, because I was afraid to. But I know it stopped after about, like I said, about 2 or 3 times, and didn't think too much about it at the time. And it wasn't until, you know, years later, about 15 years later, I'd already had one boyfriend, and I was on my second boyfriend, and I decided, since he was living out here in Eugene, so an hour away from where I was, I'd only get to see him every week and a half or 2 weeks. So I decided I was going to move, because he had decided he was going to try and transfer his job further north, so it was going to be like another hour and a half, 2 hours drive. So it's like, okay, it's already an hour away. It's going to, you know, 2.5, 3 hour drive is going to be for me to go see him. You know, it's going to be harder. Money was a little tight, you know, so it's like, I just decided I was going to take the chance and move in with him, which I think he was happy. He was fine with that at the time. But I told him I was going to sell my house, and he's like, first he tried to talk me out of it. I discovered later, I think the reason he really wanted to talk me out of it was, I think he wasn't sure how he felt about me, you know, really. And because once I made the decision to move, you know, I remember thinking, okay, I got to tell my family why all of a sudden I'm packing up and I'm moving. You know, I have a house, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to move. So I picked one night after work, I went out to my folks, and I remember they were just finishing eating dinner, and I'm out there and I'm sitting at the bar eating, and I was standing kind of at the end of it talking to them, and Mom got up and she started cleaning up dishes, and Dad was sitting there eating his dessert, and I stood there, you know, talking for a while, trying to get the courage. And finally got the courage, and I says, Mom, Dad, I got to tell you something. I'm gay. And it was dead silence. It seemed like a minute or more, but I know it's probably only like 20, 30 seconds maybe at the most, but it seemed longer than that. And after the silence, Dad just started going on with regular conversation like he'd never heard me. You know, just went on like nothing I'd said anything, and I remember thinking, I know they heard me, but nothing was said. It's like, oh shoot, you know. So I left almost immediately right after that, well, within a couple of minutes. And it was the next day I got home from work, and I had a voice message from Dad on my phone, my answer machine, and he told me, well, you know, I don't really understand, but your mom and I, we both love you, and nothing's changed. We'll always love you, you know. And it's like, whew, kind of like a relief, you know. And it was about a week later, not quite a week later, I'd come up to Eugene to visit my boyfriend, and when I got home, I had an email from the middle of my three older brothers. So the middle one, and he's told me, he says, "Well, Dad was over, and he told me that you're gay, and I want to let you know that no matter what, I still love you. You're still my brother." And he says, "And you know, the time when Julie, my sister-in-law, tried to hook you up, you know, on a couple blind dates. He's like, I told her to not do it because I told her back then that I thought you were gay." And like I said, that was like 15 years before this, so probably close to that. Maybe not quite that many, 13, 14. Anyway, and, you know, it was like, oh my God, Dad's told my brother. Who else has he told, you know? And I have a brother who lives back east. I decided I had to tell him, so I sent him an email and told him, you know, that I was gay and nothing's changed. I'm still the same person I always was. And I got an email back from him saying, "Hey, you know, I still love you and stuff." And he's like, you know, you ever have those things that you just know without ever being told? This is one of them. And so, you know, it's pretty much a relief. And the first time I saw my one brother who sent me the email telling me Dad had told him I was gay, when I went out that next time and actually saw him, because we used to play games on Saturdays a lot, and I went out there and I was kind of afraid because I hadn't actually seen him since he sent me the email, and it was like nothing had ever happened. Me being gay was never brought up, and we just, like a normal Saturday game night, you know. And you know, even now, you know, my coworkers, I'm not one person who's out and, you know, flamboyant or anything. I don't say anything. I keep to myself. If someone finds out, that's great. That's fine. I'm fine with it. You know, it's like my coworkers. Most of my coworkers I know. I've never told anybody. I know they figured it out on their own. You know, when I took my ex-boyfriend in to go shopping with me once in a while, took him to a party we had one time, you know, I know they figured things out, you know, without being told. So anyways, overall I had a good experience, and I think most guys, probably 90% of you out there, if you haven't come out, you're going to find you're going to have a great experience too. I mean, I did. Everybody's accepted me. And those of you who have already come out, I'm sure you had the same experience I did. A really good one, you know. And so I encourage you, if you are thinking about coming out, go ahead and do it. I think you'll be perfectly fine. I think you'll be surprised at the reaction you get from people. So anyways, that's my coming out video. That's my realization that I was gay, and you know, I know everybody goes through pretty much the same thing. I want to tell my story because I'm an older person, you know, and I came out a little later in life, and it doesn't seem to matter what age, you're still going to have, I think, good results on any of it. So anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to do another video here pretty soon. And so till then, bye.